To the markets, and local trade will be hoping for gains today. After the weak start to the week, metals pushing the JSE lower on Monday, while the rand extended the previous session's losses as investors watch developments between Israel and Iran. Andile Buthelezi, equity analyst at Sentio Capital, joins us now to dissect the latest market moves. Andile, good morning. So we'll start with an overview of how the local bourse is faring so far.
Yeah, look, I know we hoped for a better start today, but it wasn't. It wasn't the case. We did open in the red, and that's basically following on from how Asian markets closed this morning, as well as how U.S. markets closed in last night's session. There is general negativity right now across global markets, and you could argue that a large part of it is probably driven by two main factors right now. The first one being interest rates. We did see the U.S. inflation number coming in above market expectations last week, and that just led to global markets readjusting the expectations for interest rate cuts for this year. So the probability of interest rate cuts at the next Fed meeting, for instance, have definitely collapsed. And that's just causing a general repricing of equity markets across the world. The second one is there is a bit of nervousness about the possible escalation, of course, of tensions in the Middle East. For now, it doesn't seem to be the case, but I do think some of that is driving a lot of the negativity that you're seeing right now.
I want to talk about the IMF next, and the IMF South Africa fiscal transparency evaluation. What did it say? I know there was some caution in there about celebrating some good news, but let's talk about whether we're still in good standing.
I would say on balance, it does seem like we generally are in good standing. I mean, the opening line of the summary page reads, South Africa has many elements of sound fiscal transparency practices. So I would argue that, and then they go on to detail some of the things that they think we are doing right. To be fair, out of the 36 principles, it did say we are doing quite well on 9 of them. And then another 9 we could do a little bit better on. And then they did mention that about 6 of them, basically, we're not meeting the criteria just yet. But on balance, though, the report does point to the fact that there are a number of things that we're doing quite well. So that speaks to the fact that South Africa is quite transparent. But they do say that there are things we could work on, such as on fiscal risk calculations, for instance. So there are areas of improvement, but I think on balance, let's take the good news on this one.
But, you know, always sort of biting at our heels is the issue around good governance, and the spectre of state capture still looms large over us. Let's go to construction and mining company Afrimat. They've published their trading statement for the year ended 20th February 2024. And what are those numbers looking like?
I think on the face of it, it looks good. They are guiding to the fact that their headline earnings per share are going to be up by between 21 and 26%. No further detail has been given. We'll get more detail when they release their actual results on the 15th of May. I think with Afrimat, they have been in the news lately, of course, with the most recent piece of news that we've gotten from them is the fact that they've gotten the all clear from the competition authorities in South Africa for them to acquire Lafarge South Africa, of course. The deal is expected to close within the next 2 weeks, so I do think that it is definitely something that the market will look for a little bit more detail on in terms of how they plan to integrate this business into the overall Afrimat group when they report on their results. In terms of the rationale for the acquisition, they do speak to the fact that this acquisition is going to diversify the group. It's going to increase their product mix within the construction material space, which of course is not a bad space to be in right now. You are starting to see some work being awarded in the construction space. You are starting to see renewable energy-related infrastructure being built in SA. You are starting to see the likes of Sunrail, for instance, begin to award quite a bit of work that goes towards road maintenance. So construction, I think, generally right now is a decent space to be in. Of course, it doesn't come without its challenges, but let's take the positives on this one. On the face of it, it looks like a good number from Afrimat.
I always like to end on a sweet note, but today we're going to end on a bit of a sour one. South Africa has taken a preliminary step towards filing a complaint with the World Trade Organization, and this is against the European Union, Andile, over its treatment of citrus imports from the country. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I like the pun there. So this is a long-standing matter. Basically, about 2 years ago, the EU has put restrictions on South African imports into the EU that requires South African imports to be refrigerated for a little bit longer, for instance, which does add costs to the stuff that we send into the EU. South Africa is a big importer into the EU of citrus, second only to Spain. So definitely a very large revenue generator for us. I mean, last year we exported about $645 million worth of citrus products to the region. So it's definitely a very important line item for us. And what we're doing in terms of South Africa is basically complaining to the World Trade Organization that the restrictions that the EU has imposed on the imports of citrus into the EU are causing South African imports into the region to be a little bit less competitive than they would like to be. And the basic complaint here is that there is a bacteria, or a fungal rather, that the Europeans are claiming the South African citrus products have that require the extra refrigeration. So, look, I don't know what the merits of the case look like from a legal perspective. I don't know how much of a chance we stand, but yeah, this is something that the South Africans are taking up to the World Trade Organization there.
Well, we'll see how it unfolds. Andile, thank you for your time and your analysis. We appreciate it. Andile Buthelezi, the equity analyst at Sentio Capital.